fear of public speaking ranks higher than the fear of death, spiders, heights, all those other things. By like 75% of the population will say that speaking in public is more terrifying than those other things. I might include taxes in there, but you know. Hello and welcome to Your Free Voice with me, your host, Julia Norton. This podcast is for people who use their voice professionally or for fun, and they want to understand how it works a bit better, or to get over old stories that might be holding them back. Whatever level you're playing at right now, my goal is to bring you lots of actionable stuff, from the technical to the creative to the deeply woo, to help you free your voice. Hello and welcome to episode 48. I didn't warm up before I came in, so let me just quickly do a few cat chewing gum and a few bubbles and pa-pa-pa-ka-ka-ka-ta-ta-ta, ba-ba-ba-ga-ga-ga-da-da-da, pa-pa-pa-ka-ka-ka-ta-ta-ta, ba-ba-ba-ga-ga-ga-da-da-da. Okay, that's better. Oh, actually, I forgot my tongue, so I stick my tongue out. And then okay, that's better. It doesn't take long to just do the tiniest little bit of help for your voice to make sure that you can articulate when you jump onto the mic to be interviewed or to share something you want to share. And today I'm going to share something I want to share because it is a new project that is very, very dear to my heart. Has anybody who has worked with me or knows me or has been listening to the podcast for a while, you will know that I have been a voice coach for over 25 years. I trained in voice movement therapy in the UK in the late 90s with the founder, Paul Newham, and have been working with people to liberate themselves and their voices, to gain more creative expression and more confidence and more range and more access to breath and all these things for a long time, all wrapped up in this beautiful Jungian shadow work, working with archetypes and myths and legends and all that kind of stuff. So this is all great. This is what I've been doing for most of my life. And at the same time, I've also written music for theatre and circus and helped kids write their own operas in schools with the San Francisco Opera and all kinds of stuff like that. Recently, I joined an entrepreneurial mastermind, and I was asking the women there what kind of help they needed with their voices. One of the women in there said, you know what I really want? What I really want is a 5 or 6 week class with a small cohort group where we get together for an hour every week and practice our speech giving. We practice our origin stories, our elevator pitches, being interviewed on a podcast, all these things. I would love that. And I'd also love to learn some skills about how to use my voice, how to manage my nerves, how to use my breath, and all these things. So I thought, okay, let's try that. So that's what I've been up to lately. And I just finished my first round. My first cohort group just went through, and I've made a few changes. I've made a 6-week class now instead of 5 weeks. And anyway, I wanted to just share a little bit about that class with you today because it kind of shocked me how I hadn't seen that need, up until it was pointed out to me so clearly. Hang on, I just need to discipline the cat. Hang on. Sorry about that. My son is home from college for a bit and he has a cat. And that's a whole nother story, actually, because I used to be really allergic to cats. And here is this one living in the house because we changed the food. Yeah, I can tell you about that another day. Or message me and say, tell me about the cat food that makes you not be allergic to cats. Okay, where was I? So what's amazing to me is that I didn't see this need that women had, and other entrepreneurs too, and people that need to share their message and want to speak up and speak out, but people have generally been underrepresented. And I have had so much fun working with these women. Anyway, I want to just read a few things that they wrote in their intake forms. I've kind of approximated some of them so that they can't really easily be identified, and I'm certainly not giving anybody's names. But these are the kinds of things that people said, and let's see if any of them resonate with you in the why you hear kind of thing. How can I stop getting caught up in what people think of me when I'm auditioning or presenting? And I want to stop feeling so insecure when I'm delivering my message. I feel like I'm supposed to have a PhD in something before I can even raise my hand in a meeting. That's super, super frequent. How about this one? If people don't understand me, then what I share has no value. And if what I share has no value, then I have no value. Oof, that one's a gut punch. I feel okay recording video and audio on my own, but I won't do anything that requires me to be live and trust my brain to show up on the fly. I got that from a few people, actually, who said they felt quite in control when they were just on their own, but wouldn't do podcast interviews, wouldn't reach out or do live presentations, which is shutting down a huge part of your reach. If you're trying to share your message with the world and you won't go on a podcast or be interviewed by somebody or show up and do a live class, that's amazingly limiting. Yeah, okay. You know, I'm just going through the things. Here we are. This person said, I get jittery and hyped up when it's my turn to speak, and I'm afraid of judgment, and then my voice sounds strained and kind of false. I got that. I saw that one a few times as well. And I feel like I trip over my words or forget them entirely. I get so focused on trying to think of a proper response that I miss half of what the other person is saying, and then I get really self-conscious and anxious. That, again, these are all themes. You can see there's recurring themes going on in here. I'm not going to read them all out, but here's one more. Growing up in a Catholic school in Mexico, the rules were really strict. Girls were expected to be quiet and only speak when we were asked to do so. And then we were ridiculed for expressing ourselves like the natural children that we were. I had 14 amazing women join me on this first round, and we worked together to, first of all, just dig into where your voice is coming from physically, to fully expand the breath and let yourself feel relaxed in your body, working to release muscles around the neck and shoulders and face, working with the articulators and the tongue and the lips, and just doing all the kind of physical warm-up stuff in order to feel like you have more connection and control over your instrument. We danced because, you know, I do like to start my classes off with a little dancing. I may have to cut that out because there's so much to do in so little time, but, you know, we'll see. And we did shadow work as well. So that means, and I've talked about shadow work so many times on here, but for any of you, if this is the first episode you're listening to me and you don't know what I'm on about when I talk about shadow work, here's the very Cliff Notes version. When you are forming your personality, right? When you're forming your ego and your persona as a young person, as a child, anything that isn't acceptable in your family or your community will go into shadow. Okay? So the classic example I use all the time is if your family is super into athletics and that's the only thing that really matters, but you want to be a fashion designer or a poet, that stuff might go into shadow because it doesn't feel safe to express it. It's not that those things are bad, but it doesn't feel safe to express it because you anticipate that it won't be accepted. And if it's not accepted, you might get kicked out of the tribe, right? That's the super 3 million mile out view. But that's what shadow is. It's the stuff that we've tucked away and it becomes unreachable in our unconscious. The trouble is, when it's in the unconscious, it's very, very hard to see, right? But at the same time, it's affecting our choices and our actions every single day. Every single day, your unconscious material is affecting the choices you make all day long. And that's crazy. So my job as a Jungian coach and as your voice coach is to help you access that stuff that's in the unconscious, help you have a look at it and see what's in there so that you can bring it out into the light and integrate it, okay? Let it have a transformation in the light. So we can do that in a bunch of ways, but how I've been doing it in this new class is to work with visualizations, where you go and meet yourself in the shadow, you go and meet your shadow speaker, and then you bring messages back from the unconscious like that, is to track your dreams. And another way of doing it is to think about, especially in this arena of voices, think about voices or a particular person, maybe a celebrity or somebody who has a voice that's really annoying, right? And write down the adjectives that describe their voice. Maybe it's, whiny or shrill or whatever the words are. And then I want you to ask yourself this question: what would I think if people thought that my voice was like that? And you probably feel gutted. You probably feel completely gutted. And so what do? You overcompensate in the opposite direction. So a voice that's shrill, for example, I'm using that as one of those tags that women's voices have been labeled with for centuries. A voice that is shrill is actually passionate and expressing emotion, right? If we think about it like that. It's higher in pitched because it's got emotion behind it. Maybe it's angry or it's trying to get a point across in a situation where it's not being heard. There's something about emotion being squeezed through too small of a tube, right? That makes a voice sound shrill. Also using the resonators to let it make sound, right? To let it really echo and take up some space. There are really good reasons for that voice sounding like that, but the only thing we hear is kind of the negative stuff. So if you would absolutely die if you thought that people thought you had a shrill voice, you're going to do everything you can to make your voice the opposite of that, which might mean that you're pitching it lower than your natural range, or maybe you're making it really, really soft, or perhaps it's a little bit breathy as well because you really, really don't want to be shrill so badly. And can you hear what that's doing to my voice? It makes it like people have to strain to hear. I'm definitely not conveying my emotion in my voice. I'm limiting a whole range of colour because of this fear that if I do anything but that, people are going to think I'm shrill. Again, massive overgeneralization, and I'm really giving you the 3,000,000 mile out view, but that's kind of one of the ways we can look at unconscious material. Anyway, I'm telling you all this because I just want to let you know that if you are anxious about speaking in public, raising your hand in a meeting, pitching your business, getting on a podcast, sharing your love of birds or knitting or rockets or anything with the world because you don't actually want to get on camera and talk about it or get on podcasts and talk about it or get into a local community group or a business group and share your passions, you're not alone. Because as we know, fear of public speaking ranks higher than the fear of death, spiders, heights, all those other things. By like 75% of the population will say that speaking in public is more terrifying than those other things. I might include taxes in there, but that's a lot of people. So you're definitely not alone. And it's one of those things that you can actually work on and fix. Now, I've mentioned this in another episode, I can't remember where, but before I did my very first episode of this podcast, not my other one, not Dark and Twisty Tales. Dark and Twisty Tales, I'm telling stories. I'm being an actor. It's fine. I totally could do that without a problem. And yeah, go and check it out, actually. It's really dark fairy tales, Dark and Twisty Tales. Anyway, That one I didn't have as much anxiety about. This one, which is me claiming my expertise and sharing my skills and knowledge with the world, I actually, and this is crazy for me to even share this with you now, and I feel a little bit strange, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Before I recorded my first podcast, I sat on the floor in my booth and I actually wept. I was that afraid. I was so terrified. And it felt like the kind of fear that if I open my mouth and share my knowledge, I might actually die. I might actually be killed. Now, it seems completely out of proportion to somebody just sharing their love of the voice in a podcast. If you think about the systemic suppression of women's voices for centuries, let alone the being bird of the stake stuff, right? There's so much in terms of epigenetics and everything else that goes into who we are that can be fueling that. We have a lot of material in our unconscious that tells us it is not safe to speak out and share our message. If there's one thing I'm so passionate about right now, it's about all the people who've been keeping quiet, stepping up and sharing their voices right now. Because right now, times are scary anyway. Stuff is crazy. So please share your voice, share your magic, share your skills and your joy and your creativity and all the juicy goodness that is you that we need to hear. Okay. I think that's it. I actually need to go to the dentist now and get a filling, so I have to cut this podcast a little bit short. And I hate going to the dentist, just to say. I've got very sensitive teeth. I don't love it. But my dentist is lovely, so she's really nice, so she'll cope with me today. But anyway, if you want to join us for this next round, it's actually starting in a few days. It starts next Tuesday. If you want to join us for the next round, it's at an impossibly low rate right now for 6 weeks in a tiny cohort group with me, teaching live over Zoom, lunchtime, Pacific time. Join us. Go to yourfreevoice.com/speaking. Okay? Or yourfreevoice.com/events. Either of those will get you there. I would love to see you in the group. It is never going to be as cheap as it is right now. But I'm still ironing out the kinks of how I'm delivering the material and all that kind of stuff. But people have said some gorgeous things. You can go and have a look at the reviews and some of the stuff people have said. And anyway, just have a little think. Have a little think about what your biases might be about voices and how that might show you what is in your shadow. Okay? All right. Have a fabulous week, people. Okay, bye. Oompa 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 oompa